Don't jump, I cried to the girl on the bridge. Her unbelievable secret changed everything for us. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood there, heart racing, palms sweaty. The world around me blurred as the girl teetered on the edge of the bridge. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the cold breeze. Her dark hair whipped wildly, as if it had a mind of its own. In that moment, she was fighting a battle no one could see, and it twisted my stomach in knots. "Please, don't jump," I shouted, my voice cracking. I can still feel the tremor in the air. It was thick with desperation. She froze, just for a second, looking back with wide, haunted eyes. I saw fear there, but also something else, a flicker of hope. I knew her pain was deeper than the water below. There was something about her. Maybe it was the way the sun danced on her skin, illuminating shadows beneath her eyes. Or the way she clutched a small, battered notebook tightly to her chest, as if it held the secrets of the universe. My heart pounded louder. I found myself crossing the distance between us. I had to know. What was pulling her into that abyss? She was alone. In the chaos of the crowd gathered behind me, I felt a connection. My mom used to say, "You can't save everyone, but you can try." I would try. I had no idea what I was getting into. "Tell me your story," I urged, stepping closer. In that moment, everything felt fragile. The bridge creaked beneath her weight, the sound of a million unspoken words hanging in the air. Would she tell me? Then, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I can't. You wouldn't understand." I saw a flicker in her eyes, like a hidden flame. "It's unexplainable. Indifferent." Different? What did she mean? My heartbeat thundered as I fought to stay anchored to the moment. I could almost hear the murmurs of the onlookers behind us, wide-eyed and disapproving. Just a girl and her impossible choice. Every muscle in my body wanted to yank her back, to protect her. The crowd gasped when she stepped closer to the ledge. My stomach dropped. "Stop!" My voice rose, desperation spilling out. "You are so much more than you think." In that split second, I glimpsed something strange in her eyes, a glimmer of light, almost supernatural. My breath hitched. What was this secret? What did she hold inside that made her feel so alone? Could she really have the answers to everything I'd ever struggled with? Or was it the darkness that doomed her? My heart raced as silence wrapped around us. I had to know. "Please," I urged, reaching out my trembling hand. "You're not alone. Just come back to me." But she hesitated, looking down at the rushing river. My stomach sank as I realized there were shadows waiting for her down there. Shadows that whispered promises of release, the temptation to just let go. What was it that tied her to that edge? I felt the weight of the moment, thick and heavy. Suddenly, the weight of her strange glow pressed down on me. "I can't," she murmured, eyes narrowing. "You don't know the truth about me." Truth? I needed to know. With every passing second, the bridge felt more like a battlefield, our hearts pounding together in rhythm, racing toward an uncertain outcome. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. "I can understand more than you think," I said slowly, fear lacing my voice. The wind howled around us, a ghostly echoing of her turmoil. "Just tell me. I want to help you." I stepped even closer, closing the gap between bravery and the unknown. Her eyes darted between my face and the swirling waters below. For a heartbeat, I thought she might take my hand, that I could pull her back from the edge. But then she shivered, drawing away slightly, and with the movement came a revelation that struck like a thunderclap in my mind. I am not human, she declared, a tremor of disbelief and pain coloring the words. Not in the way you understand it. The confession hung in the air, as if time itself had paused. Confusion settled in my chest like weights. What do you mean? What was she saying? Was this part of her mental struggle? Or was she truly someone or something extraordinary? As if sensing my hesitation, she looked at me with a raw vulnerability, allowing the flickering light in her eyes to dim slightly. I've been trying to control it. My powers, they scare people. Her voice quaked as she continued, they make me different. There are things I can do that you can't even imagine, but with every gift, there's a cost. And that cost? It's tearing me apart. She turned her gaze back to the water, her expression turning distant. Powers? I repeated, still trying to wrap my mind around her reality. What kind of powers? She hesitated, her breath hitching. The kind that can take you away from everything you know and love. I can move things, make things happen, but I can't control it. Desperation crept into her voice. I hurt people I care about. I couldn't do it anymore. The bridge creaked ominously, echoing her fears. My heart ached for her, feeling the burden of her secret settle like an unshakable weight between us. But is that really a reason to end it? I asked gently, desperate to illuminate the path back to safety. You have the chance to learn, to connect with others who might understand. She shook her head violently. You don't know what it feels like to be feared for being yourself. The fire returned to her voice, yet it was tinged with desolation. It'll only bring darkness. It's already started. The murmurs from the crowd grew into whispers, each word steeped in worry, pity, and disbelief. I knew they were watching us, but in this moment, they faded into a blur. All that mattered was this girl standing on the edge, a fragile flame flickering against the dark night. I had to reach her. Listen to me. Maybe there are others just like you. Maybe they can help, I said, hopeful that a sense of belonging could spark life in her heart again. My gaze dialed her in, urging her to meet me halfway. What if there's a way to control your powers? You could learn to use them for good. Good? She scoffed bitterly before leaning a little further towards the void. What good can come from a monster like me? I felt my breath catch. The weight of her anguish washed over me, threatening to drown. Yet even in that moment of despair, I searched for a flicker of light. You're not a monster. You're a person capable of great things. Can't you feel it? The girl's eyes searched mine, and I saw the reflection of my own determination. I know it's hard to see right now, but life is worth fighting for. I took a deeper breath, trying to channel every bit of courage I had. You have people who can understand your struggle. You just have to take that first step back. Her lips quivered, and I could sense the possibility dancing like a soft breeze between us. What if I fail? She whispered, a fragile thread of fear woven in her tone. I stepped forward again, grasping that sliver of hope, an outstretched hand offering her the kindness she craved. Then we'll figure it out together. The journey doesn't mean you have to go alone. She hesitated still, caught between the treachery of the void and the light of my pleading gaze. At that moment, I sensed an unseen barrier being tested, her heart wavering. And just when it felt like she might step back into the fold of life, a loud crash erupted from the crowd. A man surged forward, shouting something incoherent, reckless with both fear and anger. Get away from her. He aimed towards me, like a dark cloud threatening a storm. The girl's eyes widened with disbelief. No. Don't, she cried, glancing back at him. The flicker in her eyes ignited into a blaze, radiating an energy both frightening and beautiful. Suddenly, as the man approached, I felt the air thrum with anticipation. Something shifted in her. Her powers crackled at the surface, no longer a mystery. No longer a burden, The moment froze, like the dark waters below. "What are you going to do?" I breathed, a fresh wave of panic coursing through me. But just as her emotions collided with the energy crackling around her, she stepped back, a sliver of fear tainting her newfound strength. I can't control it," she cried out, her focus shifting from the man's impending threat back to me. Panic-stricken, and my heart raced, the stakes escalating beyond reason as I reached for her. "Don't let fear choose for you." And then, as if the universe was watching, the ground beneath us trembled, and I felt the bridge sway. Was it a premonition? Or was the force of her power finally breaking through? The girl's eyes met mine, with a piercing Clarissa realization dawning. I wish I could fight it," she whispered, just as the shadows lurking in the depths began to stir, readying themselves for a deeper darkness. Everything felt suspended in an exhilarating edge of danger, and as my heart sank, I knew that this moment could either save us or tear us apart forever. The wind howled louder, rushing against us, as if the very elements were conspiring to sweep her away. Time felt elastic, stretching infinitely as her eyes danced with hesitation, fear swirling within the depths. I could see her mind racing, wrestling with the weight of impending choices that would forever alter her existence. This was about more than just life and death. It was about self-acceptance, the battles we fight within ourselves, and the love we both craved yet feared to embrace. "Please," I started to say, but the ground beneath us groaned, and my heart skipped a beat as the bridge shifted again. She teetered, her body swaying dangerously close to the edge, and the panic ignited within me like a wild flame. "You don't have to do this. There is so much more waiting for you." But as I reached out again, an invisible force pressed into the space between us, carrying the whispered words of doubt from the crowd that had gathered behind us. They didn't understand her, didn't see her as I did. I felt their judgment wrapping around her like chains, the way their eyes pinned her to a Labila monster, a freak. In that moment, the weight of that distinction pressed heavy on my heart. I realized the layers of emotional turmoil we carried, both of us trapped in a world that often rejected anything that deviated from the norm. "No! Look at me!" I shouted, my voice seasoned with urgency. "You are not defined by their fear. They don't know you, and they don't know the battle you fight. You are so much more than what they claim." At my words, she flinched, her resolve visibly wavering. But I saw the flicker of something, hope, courage, begin to grow behind her fear-stricken face. "But what if I hurt them?" she whispered, voice trembling. "Then we protect them," I offered, and my heart raced with the conviction that surged through me, drawing me closer to her. "We will learn to harness it together. You won't be alone in this. I promise." And yet, the man who had rushed at us moved closer again, fueled by an obsession to save Hera. Perhaps his own fears led him that way. "You don't know what she's capable of," he barked, his breath fiery. "Stay back." My mind whirled in conflict. How could I reassure her when our surroundings dripped with trepidation? I knew she was scared of that power within her, scared of what she could unleash. But why hadn't anyone invited her to be a part of something bigger? Why hadn't anyone taught her how to control it instead of pushing her to the abyss? "Look," I urged her softly, coaxing her attention back as my fingers brushed the cool metal of the railing. "Wherever you go, people will judge and misunderstand. But there will be others who want to help you, who will embrace your differences rather than fear them." Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a fragile moment, it felt as though our souls intertwined, a fleeting glimpse into a world of acceptance. But the moment shattered as the ground lurched again, and I caught the frantic glimmer of desperation in her eyes as she glanced at the man closing in on us. "I'm so afraid," she conceded, the fire in her voice dwindling as a shroud of dread enveloped her. "What if I can't control it? What if I hurt you?" My heart pounded as all the darkness and turmoil, hers and mine, danced in stark contrast under the swooping clouds above us. I had to make her understand. We'll face that risk together. None of this changes the fact that you are more than your fears or your abilities. You are special because of everything you are. And in that moment of vulnerability, I made a choice. I took a step closer, heart on my sleeve, and, still desperately hoping for a glimmer of connection, I extended my hand, fingers trembling yet unwavering. Trust me. Just trust me. As the winds twisted around us, I felt the zephyr and the tension converge, both of us standing at the edge of not just the bridge, but a chasm of choices. But abruptly, the man lunged, his intentions igniting a cascade of chaos. Get away from her. His voice thundered, full of rage and protectiveness. In sheer panic, the girl gasped, eyes wide as the force of her powers erupted in a cacophony of energy, illuminating the night in an iridescent glow. I stared in awe, captivated, yet deeply terrified. No! Not now! I yelled, recognizing the ominous flash of power that threatened to spiral out of control. Time warped. The air pulsated thickly around us as the bridge trembled one last time, a warning melody that sent chills through me. The finality hung in the air, leaving us as shards of uncertainty, swaying in a tempest of emotional wreckage. Take my hand. I pleaded, the overwhelming possibility of what could happen sending my heart racing faster than the chaos unfolding around us. But just then, with a blinding flash, an explosion of energy erupted from her, lighting the sky and shrouding the bridge until it was anything but the calm, solid structure we had once stood upon. There, veiled in luminescence, I saw the expression on her face shift from fear to fierce acceptance. Then, in that fleeting heartbeat between chaos and clarity, the ground beneath us shuddered one last time. And suddenly, she was gone, her form surrounded by blinding light, the air crackling fiercely, as though the universe itself was rupturing between us. In that moment of lost contact, all I could do was scream for her. The word caught in my throat, fading into the echoing shadows, leaving me chained to the void, teetering ever closer to the edge. I was enveloped in silence, punctuated only by the faint thrum of my heartbeat echoing in the distance. The blinding light that had captured her seemed to swallow the world whole. The bridge, once a span of hope, now felt like a fragile tether between reality and the void. I staggered back, my breath quickening as around me the crowd recoiled, their faces painted with shock and confusion. I had wanted to pull her back from the edge, but what if I had just sent her flying into the unknown? Where did she go? I whispered, panic clawing at my throat. My mind scrambled through possibilities, but none made sense. The bridge still trembled beneath my feet, the crowd's murmurs rising like a tide, each voice drumming louder against my consciousness. Stay away from her. The man shouted again, his eyes wild with fear, as though it was a wild animal that had just broken free, and it was all his fault. I could see in his eyes a suffocating regret. He had fought so hard to protect her, yet in that moment he was just as helpless as I was. An older woman near him, who had been watching with her hands pressed to her chest, finally stepped forward. We need to call for help. Someone must have seen what happened. Her voice trembled, laced with both fear and a fierce determination that kindled the embers of hope within me, even when the darkness felt suffocating. What if she can't come back? I urged, the weight of despair climbing onto my shoulders. What if she's out there, lost? They're out there looking for her. Another voice chimed in, a young man who had absorbed the scene with wide, frightened eyes. He pulled out his phone, fumbling with it, as if that simple action could somehow bridge the gap between our world and hers. He'll start calling people. Maybe someone saw where she went. I couldn't pause to think, my body acting on instinct as I turned away from the crowd, searching the edges of light that remained in the air around the shattered place where she had stood. What if she doesn't know how to come back? I murmured, fear overpowering me again. The pulsing energy had felt raw and untamed. She had been terrified of it, And now it was uncertain what other worlds it could unlock. As I stared into the stretches of darkness beyond the bridge, I felt a surge of warmth ripple against my hand. Taking a breath, I glanced down to see the faintest shimmer lingering in the air. It was as though a piece of her essence had been left with me, a sliver of hope amidst the chaos. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and I could feel its strength, whispering to me that she was still here, somewhere, somehow. It means she's alive, I told myself, the realization clawing at my heart. But alive where? My desperation morphed into misguided courage. I could not stand idly by. I need to find her, I declared, turning toward the crowd, my voice echoing against the cold air. You saw what she was capable of. She's frightened and alone. We have to figure out how to bring her back. A few of them exchanged uncertain glances, but I could see a hint of solidarity forming. The gentleman's protective nature seemed momentarily forgotten as he turned to me, his anger replaced by fear for her safety. All right, he agreed, his voice low yet steady. We need to organize. Talk to your friends. Reach out to anyone who holds any insight into this, whatever happened. Gather information. Is there anyone else she can connect with? Something inside me flickered as I stared into the faces surrounding millions of humanity, all swirling within this emotional storm. If she was still out there, then perhaps she wasn't alone in this fight. Perhaps there were others hiding from the world, just like her, who could offer insight or support. Hours passed as we pooled our resources, frantic calls, messages sent into the void, each asking for guidance or knowledge on what had transpired, where she might have gone. I kept the shimmering warmth from earlier cradled in my palm, a talisman of hope that would guide me through the uncertainties. But as night enveloped the day, shadows lengthening and stretching across our search efforts, the pangs of fear curled back into my heart, less like an old friend and more like the clawing desperation of a storm. The void loomed larger. Time slipped through my fingers like sand, and uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my resolve. Every unanswered call was less a sign of her escape and more evidence of her absence, a haunting echo promising only loneliness. Then, just when the last thread of dread threatened to suffocate me, my phone buzzed violently against my leg. I grasped it, my heart pounding fiercely. A message from an unknown number. Is this about her? It read simply, the screen glowing like a beacon in the thickening dark. My chest tightened. Hope twisted into a knot of questions. Who is this? I typed back, each second stretching into eternity. Moments ticked by, but when another message appeared, breath caught in my throat. She's safe. Those two words ignited the snuffed-out embers of hope into a brilliant flame. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, heart pounding against my ribs. Where? I quickly said back, desperation clawing at my throat. Another message returned, but this time, it sent a chill down my spine. Closer than you think. The fear seeped hastily back in, pushing away the warmth I had held onto so tightly. In a dawning moment of clarity, I realized they knew something about her, something critical that could change everything. Who are you? I asked for the last time, breathless, the world narrowing around me. The reply came almost instantly, but it was shockingly different from anything I had anticipated. The truth is, she isn't what you think. She was never lost. She jumped. My heart dropped, confusion intertwining with something darker gnawing at the edges of my mind like a wraith. Jumped? I whispered to myself, planting my feet firmly into the solid ground. What truth lay hidden in those words? What choices had led her here? But there was one pressing question above all. If she jumped, then where and why had I let her go? I was about to find out. Everything inside me spiraled into chaos as the message sank in. She jumped? Those words echoed in my mind, relentless and accusing, like an unanswered question looming over me. I felt as though the ground beneath had given way once more, and I was free falling into an abyss of uncertainty and regret. What did you mean by that? My fingers trembled as I typed the question, urgency flooding my veins. I needed answers, but the anxiety was gnawing at my insides, threatening to crush the last flickers of hope I had. "Are you saying she meant to leave?" "Not by accident," came the swift reply. "It was intentional. She chose this. My heart pounded painfully against my ribcage, each pulse a reminder of what I had failed to understand, that there was depth to her pain beyond what I had perceived, an awareness of her struggles that perhaps I had taken for granted. In my fixation over saving her, had I truly acknowledged the turmoil she faced every day? "Why?" I begged as I stared at the screen, an empty ache swelling within me. What was she escaping from? The response was slow in coming, but my desperation morphed into an anxious restlessness, as if the very act of waiting was a betrayal to her unseen suffering. "She didn't mean to hurt you. The weight was too much. But she needed to find a way out. She thought she had none. My breath hitched painfully in my throat. Guilt rushed in like a tidal wave, drowning me in memories of her quiet moments, the shadows beneath her laughter, the way her eyes would sometimes glaze over as though she were staring into a dark abyss. I had brushed them off, overlooking the signals of distress in my naivety. No more. "How do I bring her back?" I typed, desperation fueling my every keystroke. "What do I need to do?" "Follow the trail," the stranger replied. "But beware, she's not alone now. Others have jumped. You need to understand what she has found, or she may not return." An overwhelming surge of panic gripped me. Others? Had she joined a hidden world that thrived on despair? "I don't want to lose her again," I shouted into the digital void, though I knew the screen wouldn't answer my plea. "Make a choice," came the final message, cold and indifferent. Fight for her heart, or let it go. What choice was there? The notion of letting her go felt unbearable, unfathomable. Yet, would pursuing her in this enigmatic chase lead to more hurt? I wasn't equipped for this, not just for her, but for everything else I held dear. "What if I can't reach her?" I asked, filled with hesitation. The response, however, arrived slowly, almost like a whisper. "If you believe in her enough, she'll feel it." Sometimes, love is the only bridge across. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes as I read those words, blending raw emotion with fierce determination. She was fighting loneliness, grappling with demons I couldn't see. I had to find her before she made a choice that would shatter all we held dear. But how? As if sensing my turmoil, a light flickered, illuminating a small sidewalk that wound along the bridge's edge. I could see an old woman leaning against the railing, eyes brimming with the wisdom of ages. She seemed to be watching the world beneath us, and almost instinctively, I felt drawn toward her. You know, I asked, my voice barely a whisper, what it's like to feel so lost that jumping feels like the only way out. The woman turned slowly, her gaze piercing through the night, a look that seemed to penetrate my very soul. "Child, every soul has its bridges, and its void spaces they fear to cross. But remember, not all who jump are lost forever. Many seek to find what is waiting for them on the other side." "But what if there's nothing waiting?" I pressed, my voice quaking beneath the weight of my fears. "What if she doesn't return? Then you must shine a light for her path," she said, her voice an ethereal caress that settled over my heart, if only momentarily. "Show her that she is loved beyond what she understands. Invite her home." A sudden gust of desperation clenched at my heart as the realization washed over me. Wasn't just searching for her, I was fighting for our connection, for the light she may have believed was extinguished. Gathering my courage, I raised my phone once more, fingers steady as I sent a simple message, infused with every ounce of emotion that threatened to drown me. "I believe in you. I'll be waiting. Come home." Moments dripped by, the air thickening with a sense of anticipation, but there was no response. Nothing to indicate if my call had reached her, or if she could even hear me. Panic surged through me again, a wild, terrifying whirl. But then, piercing the stillness, I saw movement in the shadows near the edge of the bridge. A silhouette stepped out, backlit by the pulse of the city lights. My heart leaped into my throat as I took a cautious step forward, searching desperately for familiarity in the figure. Ezra. The voice surged through the darkness like a fleeting memory, and everything froze at the edge of that moment. I held my breath, heart aching at the sound, but I was gripped by an unspeakable dread. What were the words left unsaid that hung between us like a chasm? As the figure stepped closer, illuminated by the flickering halo of light above, my breath caught, and despair sank back in so profoundly it silenced my very soul. Because what stood before me was not just her. It was a collectivity, a gathering. Others, faces marked by pain yet flickering with an odd, ethereal beauty. They hovered at the edge of that bridge, each a reminder of the unexplored depths of her journey. And amid them all her eyes met mine, shimmering with unspoken secrets that would forever change everything I thought I knew about her. Ezra, she breathed, stepping forward, each step a heartbeat resonating with the echoes of the choice she had made. It's time to learn the truth. With the weight of countless unvoiced thoughts heavy in the air around us, I stood there, caught between two worlds, each heartbeat thrumming with anticipation and uncertainty. What secrets would spill forth as she crossed that threshold into a reality none of us could ever have prepared for? In that moment, the truth began to unfold, and I had no idea how deep the fall would be. The air hung heavy with unspoken words, filling the space between us like an invisible fog, thick with confusion and dread. I felt my heart hammering against my chest, each beat amplifying my fear of what lay ahead. As her figure drew nearer, the weight of the gathering behind her seemed to coalesce into an oppressive force, each face echoing silent stories of struggle and turmoil, lost souls who had taken the leap, just as she had. "Please, just tell me what's going on," I pleaded, desperation clawing at my insides. I could see flickers of pain and defiance in her eyes, qualities that had always moved me, yet now they cast shadows I had never noticed before. The world around us fell silent. Even the distant city sounds seemed to fold in on themselves, waiting for her words. "I can't turn back," she said, her voice low and trembling. "You don't understand what I saw, what I felt when I jumped. It was like escaping a cage, but I slipped into another one. This world, it's not what you think it is." Every instinct told me to step forward and pull her back from the edge of whatever precipice she now stood upon, but the memories of our strained moments eclipsed all forms of clarity. The shadows, the emotional labyrinth she had navigated without me loomed large in my mind. "What do you mean? Did you find what you were looking for?" My voice cracked, revealing the depth of my worry. She hesitated, glancing back at the faces behind her, each person casting a shadow of their own pain and longing. "It's not that simple, Ezra. Here, we share our truths, our fears." I thought I could leave it all behind, but her voice trailed off, eliciting a wave of frustration from within. "I just wanted to be free." "Free?" I echoed, desperate for clarity. "But at what cost? Is this gathering what you wanted? You were so much more than this." At that moment, a figure beside her stepped out, a middle-aged man with eyes like cold steel and a voice that rolled like thunder. "What she found is solace, kid. A community. She's not lost, she's been found, but not in the way you believe. This depression, this darkness, it unites us like nothing else." He gestured toward the others, a mixture of empathy and challenge in his stance. "We've all jumped for a reason." I felt my world unraveling further. "But you're on the edge. You're escaping into a deeper understanding." The man interrupted, his intensity illuminating the desperation in his own eyes. "We share our burdens here, we break free from expectations, and together we learn that jumping doesn't have to mean falling forever. This isn't a story about losing her. This is a doorway to transforming pain." Hope flickered violently within me, battling against the enormous chasm of hopelessness I felt. The man's words planted a seed of confusion and intrigue. But what about the pain we leave behind? What about the people who love us? That's just it, the woman said softly, finally stepping into the light fully as she met my gaze. By jumping, I thought I was freeing myself from my own weight. But it was like walking through a mirror. I came face to face with parts of myself I never understood. I've seen people who have lost loved ones, people living with pain for years. We climbed together in this shadowed place, but what have you sacrificed to be here? You left everyone, I protested, each word laced with urgency. You've shut us out. Her revelation hung between us, suspended like a breath held too long. I struggled to find the right words to pierce the veil of what felt like betrayal. You don't have to choose this life. You can come back. An unnerving tension twisted in my gut, and desperation fueled the arrival of something buried deep inside my fear of the person I had lost, and perhaps of the person she had become. What do I need to do? I all but begged, wider awake than I had ever been. I can't let you fall back into silence. Someone in the gathering stepped forward, a young woman with deep-set eyes that mirrored my own sense of yearning. You have to be willing to embrace her truth, Ezra. It's not just about bringing her back, it's recognizing her journey as part of a greater narrative. Love doesn't always look the same. The words sparked a wildfire in my chest. What did it mean to embrace her truth? To yield to a reality that might include me, might not? I felt raw, stripped of my certainties, confronting my own vulnerability. Suddenly the man's voice caught through my spiraling thoughts. You want her back? Show her that she belongs, not just to you, but to herself. His words were like a blade, slicing through my confusion, but exposing the tender flaws of how I saw her. In that very moment, I understood this wasn't just about reaching out to her. It was about confronting my own fears. I had to stand before her truth and accept the stark possibilities laid out like an open road ahead. Open your eyes, Ezra, she added softly, as she stepped back further into the thrumming energy of the gathering. This world may not make sense now, but it could be the beginning of all we never knew we needed. But just as the light of hope began to dawn, a sudden sound rippled through the gathering, a scream, sharp and jarring, shattering the delicate atmosphere we had fought to create. I turned instinctively toward the sound, and my heart plummeted into despair as another figure was thrust into view, struggling against the bodies of the others around her. It was a voice I recognized all too well. Angela, my childhood friend, was fighting to breach the perimeter, her eyes wild with terror. Help! She's gone! They're dragging her down. Panic surged wildly within me as fear gripped my throat. The world around me blurred into chaos, and just like that, everything I had just begun to comprehend shattered into pieces. The stakes were suddenly higher, and the path ahead darkened with another impending loss. I couldn't get to her fast enough. Couldn't let the shadows consume us all. Ezra! Run! Angela screamed, but there was no clear path forward. No escape from the emotional riptide that threatened to pull us all under. In that moment, I stood paralyzed between the choice of defending my past or confronting the haunting threads of my present. Every bone in my body screamed, and I lunged forward, ready to face whatever awaited us in that chilling void, determined to shine a light even if it meant plunging into the darkness. The air was thick with tension, every heartbeat resounding in my ears as I fought through the throng of bodies, my focus hyper-aware of Angela's terrified cries. Don't let them take her! The urgency in her voice sliced through the chaotic din, rooting me firmly in the moment, fueled by a desperate sense of duty. I had to reach whoever was in danger before it was too late. Hold on! I shouted back toward Angela, desperation sharpening my voice. But as I pressed against the crowd, the energy morphed from a collective yearning to one of primal instinct, panic rippling through the group with each terrified glance. Shadows danced around us as people stepped back, their fear feeding a growing darkness that enveloped the scene. With every stride, I felt the weight of all that had led me here to confessions, the pain, the sense of belonging, and now this sudden chaos that threatened to obliterate hope in an instant. The gathering's intention had shifted. The idea of catharsis now looked like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Then I spotted Hera's fleeting shape struggling against the tide of bodies. She was being pulled away, almost gently, against her will. My heart plunged. No! Let her go! I yelled again, my voice cutting through the noise with renewed vigor, as if sheer determination could alter reality. The figure of my friend Cassandra blurred into view, her eyes wide with fright, hands clawing for freedom. The aura of the crowd shifted, an arcane ritual marking the line between salvation and despair. The man who had earlier proclaimed the shared burden stepped up, his expression steely. When they jump, they leave behind what weighs them down. This is what freedom looks like. Freedom? I spat, revulsion coursing through me. No one should endure this. You can't take her. Cassandra's gaze caught mine, a spark of recognition flaring amid the tumult. Ezra! Help! The panic stained her voice, as sharp and vivid as the anguish clawing at my chest. A shadow at my side shifted, and I turned to see the young woman who had spoken earlier, her expression a mask of wary hope. You have to believe she's not just a victim here, she chose to be part of this. Everyone has their reasons. Chose? Look at her. I couldn't contain the fierce protectiveness that boiled through me. She doesn't want this. Her fears are her own, the young woman insisted, her voice steady but sorrowful. Just as your fight is yours. You can't save her until she's ready to be saved. The contradiction echoed back to me, twisting my stomach in knots. How could I let go and believe that she would willingly throw herself into this storm? I shot a look back toward Angela, uncertain, frightened, but resolute. Her presence anchored me amidst the chaos. We might have been confronting the shadows together, but I could see the burden of her decision written on her face. With agonizing clarity, I realized that jumping wasn't just a literal act. It was a metaphor for the choices we made every day, the battles we fought in silence. I forced myself to take a breath as the world dissolved further into turmoil around me. Cassandra! I shouted, locking my gaze on hers. You are stronger than this. Fight. Find your way back to us. A flicker of recognition in her eyes danced through the chaos, igniting something buried deep within. The bonds that held us weren't gone. They just existed in a different realm now, a space marked by a struggle for truth and vulnerability that transcended mere physical presence. My eyes darted back and forth between the gathering that had become a wall of shadows and the emerging light within Cassandra. Look at me, remember our dreams? It was a lifeline, a connection to our shared past. We had our plans, our laughter. I know she's there, waiting to be found. In that moment, her gaze steadied, the fight in her dimming slightly, as if my words had pierced through the fog surrounding her. But just when I thought I reached her, the man from before lunged forward, hand outstretched. Stop! I screamed, a raw instinct compelling me to shield her from further harm. You can't take her away. Panic coursed through the crowd as everyone braced for the fallout of this tug-of-war between darkness and light. Then above the clamor, I heard a distinct voice, cutting through the chaos with icy clarity. You think she needs saving, don't you? But what if this is really about you, Ezra? I almost stumbled at the rawness of that accusation, the sharpness of truth cutting deeper than anything the gathered crowd could hurl at me. What do you mean? Your fear of losing her has chained you in your own darkness. You want to tether her to your vision of safety, but the only way forward is to allow her to choose her path no matter what it looks like. Each word landed like stones in the rapid waters of my resolve. Was I so focused on holding on to her that I was blind to her own desires, her own journey? I felt as if the ground beneath me was crumbling away, leaving me teetering on the edge of an abyss. Suddenly, a chorus of gasps erupted, drawing my attention back to Cassandra. Her eyes ablaze, she broke free from the grasp of those who sought to seize her, tearing through the walls of fear around us. "I'm not done yet," she shouted, voice fierce with conviction. "Let me choose." But just then, an unexpected hand seized Cassandra's wrist from behind, yanking her back toward the gathering shadows. My heart dropped as I realized it was another figure from the depths, cloaked in darkness, pulling her back with an unsettling strength. The last thing I heard was her shout, an echo marked by uncertainty, and a flicker of defiance, "Don't choose for me." I lunged forward, desperation boiling over, my chance to confront not just her, but the delicate web of choices that stretched far beyond us. The gathering erupted into chaos, and I was left grappling with a heart-wrenching revelation. The battle wasn't just for Cassandra's life, it was for my own understanding, for acceptance of a truth I was wholly unprepared to face. As I reached out into the darkness, I found nothing but the icy grasp of uncertainty. And as Cassandra slipped from my grasp, the shadows seemed ready to follow her deeper into that abyss, a truth hidden in yet another leap into the unknown. The scream that ripped from my throat mingled with the cacophony around us, each note carrying a weight of despair that dragged down my resolve. "Cassandra!" I cried out, my hand reaching for the space where she had just been, now empty. The shadows engulfed her, swallowing her fierce spirit in one swift motion, leaving me standing on the precipice of an unbearable truth. I felt utterly lost, as if I had been cast adrift on a dark sea, the currents of despair dragging me into their depths. Behind me, the crowd surged, a living organism driven by fear and confusion. Angela caught my eye, her face pale, lips pressed tight together in anxious contemplation. "Ezra!" she shouted, an anchor amidst the storm. "We need to get out. It's too dangerous." But I couldn't leave. I couldn't abandon Cassandra. In that moment, a flicker of defiance ignited within me, fueled by all the memories we had created together, the late-night laughter, whispered dreams, the unyielding belief that we would always find our way back to one another. As if sensing my determination, the young woman from before stepped closer. Her eyes, filled with a warmth that spread deep into the icy corners of my fear, met mine. "What if we find a way to get to her, instead of running?" she asked softly, the words penetrating the chaos like a thread of light. For a fleeting moment, I considered retreat, the shadows clawing at my back insisting I follow the path of safety. But as I stood there, grappling with the decision, I felt a surge of something more profound than fear. It was hope, imperfect and trembling but resolute in its essence. "Okay," I breathed out, my voice trembling but steady. "We have to go back. We can't let her face this alone." The others exchanged nervous glances, and I could sense the uncertainty hanging between us like a fragile silken thread. Nodding in resolute agreement, the young woman extended her hand toward me. "Sophia. And I promise I'll help you." We could remind her of her strength. I grasped her hand firmly, feeling the reassuring pulse of shared purpose amidst our disparate fears. "Together," I affirmed, glancing back at Angela, who still clutched the weight of her own skepticism. In that instant, I could see the shimmering possibility of solidarity. Perhaps we weren't just fighting for Cassandra, but for our own healing too. Desperate thoughts coiled in my mind, but I brushed them aside, focusing instead on the warmth of community, the faint outline of support waiting to weave its way through chaos. We pushed through the throng, our strides synchronized, bringing us closer to the heart of the fray. As we slipped into the tempest that encircled Cassandra, I could feel the urgency in the air, the tension humming like electric wires threatening to snap at any moment. Then, just as we reached the edge of the gathering, the shadowy figures began to converge, an ominous fog pooling around them. I squinted, trying to pierce through the consistence of despair, when suddenly, Cassandra appeared on a makeshift podium. She looked like a warrior clad in the remnants of her struggles, her frame trembling but defiantly upright. "Enough," she proclaimed, voice ringing clear and undeniable. "I own my choices. Am not a victim." But behind her, a figure surged forward, taller and shrouded in black, carrying an oppressive presence. Instantly, the air thickened, and the crowd recoiled as the man loomed, a looming specter of memories I was painfully familiar with. "You're lost, Cassandra. Do you think this is freedom? You don't have to do this." It hit me like a blow to the chest, the painful acknowledgement that this wasn't simply a gathering of souls intertwined, but also an echo of the past's broken promises and long-held fears. In that moment, realization crystallized within me. This wasn't solely about the fight to save Cassandra. It was a reckoning, a battleground where every heart was exposed. "Stop!" I shouted, pushing past the throng, my body fueled with a forward momentum that felt unstoppable. "She doesn't need saving from her choices. We all have the right to choose our paths, but we all need support along the way." Cassandra's gaze met mine, a flicker of something stirring within her even as shadows clawed at her edges. Ezra, panic flooded my veins as the dark figure her captor drew close, hands outstretched to reclaim her. "This is not your fight. You don't understand." But in that moment, I sensed the shift in the air, as if the tide was gently starting to deliver hope back to shore. The heartbeat of the crowd ebbed and flowed, surging with anticipation, drawn by Cassandra's defiance, by the strength of belief spilling from our shared vulnerability. Yet, before I could seize the moment, another rush of figures, cloaked and enigmatic, emerged from the shadows. They advanced toward us, draped in the thick mists of sorrow, and I felt a chill race down my spine. "What do they want?" I breathed, my heart pounding. "Cassandra's a sacrifice," the man proclaimed, voice reverberating with an authority that made the air electric. "She belongs to the night." "No!" I protested vehemently, every fiber of my being demanding to fight for her, for us. But as the shadows pressed closer, I realized that the true stakes were far greater than I had imagined. Cassandra turned toward me, panic flickering momentarily in her eyes, as the crowd hesitated, uncertainty hanging in the air like a loaded promise. "Ezra," and just as she opened her mouth to speak, a blinding light cut through the darkness, illuminating the faces of those who had chosen to stand with Cassandra. The revelation hit me like a crashing wave. This was a moment suspended in time, one that could alter everything. As the shadows tangled with the hope of the gathering, the question loomed larger than ever in my heart. How far was I willing to go to save not just Cassandra, but also every thread that connected us? And with that daunting revelation, one final truth struck me. I might be the one tethering her to the darkness, unwilling to let go, and that could cost us both everything. The light that sliced through the darkness became a beacon, a glimmer of hope amidst the impending descent into despair. It illuminated not just the faces of the crowd, but also the fearful realization in Cassandra's eyes. In that heartbeat of clarity, I felt a desperate need to bridge the chasm between us, but the shadows were relentless, creeping in on her from all sides. I could see her shaking, and my heart ached at the thought of watching a piece of Hermie Cassandra consumed by the darkness. "Cassandra!" I shouted again, my voice barely above the rising tide of whispers and prayers that filled the space between us like smoke. "You're not alone. Remember who you are?" I don't know if I can," she cried back, her voice raw, unsteady as she looked at the dark figure, a man who had once held power over her, who now sought to reclaim her in a grip of fear masked as concern. "Say it," I urged, the tension in the air shifting with each word. "Say who you are?" For a moment, I thought the flames of hope might flicker out completely. But then, a collective breath from the crowd surged forth, uniting in a swell of faith. "Cassandra, you're a survivor. You're strong," came the calls, dovetailed with clapping hands and voices breaking free from their own shackles of doubt. The dark figure hesitated, disbelief shadowing his features as he took a step back, encountering the united front standing between him and Cassandra. "This is insanity," he roared, but the trembling edges of his voice betrayed his waning power. As if ignited by their belief, I saw the flicker of resilience blossom within Cassandra. Her eyes gleamed fiercely now, reflecting the light that hit her squarely on the shoulders. She stood a little taller. "I am not the girl in the shadows," she shouted, her voice resonating with the warmth of truth. "I am Cassandra, and I choose to live in the light." A roar of encouragement erupted from the crowd, rising and falling like waves lapping at a shore. My chest swelled, a tide of pride and gratitude that I barely had the words to express. But just as I thought we might transcend the darkness, the shadows rippled, morphing into something even darker. Enough of this charade. The cloaked figure bellowed, a storm of fury churning inside him. "You think they'll protect you? Your so-called community? They'll turn against you when the shadows start claiming their own. Your choice will bring doom upon them." As he spoke, I felt that familiar chill creep back in, unholy doubts rising like the tide he threatened to release. The collective fervor faltered, anxiety slithering through the crowd like a whispered lie. For a fleeting moment, I sensed their resolve weakening, unraveling before us. "Can't you see?" he continued, voice dripping with malice. "Your world is built on a foundation of lies. They don't care for you. They only gather to watch the show." Cassandra's strength faltered for just the briefest moment, as if the fragile thread binding her to hope threatened to snap. It was there, in that abysmal parking of horror, that desperation clawed at my heart once more. I felt the flames of doubt flickering dangerously close, and there was so much at stake, not just for her, but for all of us beginning to venture into the light together. Suddenly, before I could reach out again, something extraordinary happened. Angela stepped forward, her face etched with fierce determination, her expression resolute. "You don't know our strength," she shouted, stepping up to the forefront of the crowd, eyes blazing with courage. "Cassandra, you are not alone in this fight. We are all here because we choose connection over isolation, light over shadow." The crowd swelled behind her, voices rising like a rallying cry that sent shockwaves through the air. The dark figure faltered slightly, hesitation creeping into the depths of his eyes, as the tide turned against him. He recoiled, feeding on our collective fear and doubt, so close to victory yet so far from true control. And at that moment, a heart-wrenching realization washed over me like a chilling wave. What if Angela was correct? What if the darkness he wielded was only as powerful as the fear we allowed it to foster? "Cassandra!" I called again, every ounce of desperation and hope flooding into my words. "Trust in us. Lean into the light we share. We won't let this shadow consume you." Cassandra took a step forward, faith intertwining with frailty, as her gaze locked with mine. Ezra, she hesitated, the shadows swirling restless around her. "But what if I fall?" In that profound moment, the air grew still, and I understood that this wasn't merely about standing against the figure swathed in darkness. It was about bridging our truths, confronting our fears side by side. "Then he'll fall with you," I declared. "But together, we'll find our way back into the light." In the echoes of my words, I saw something profound ignite within her, a flicker of belief that we could fight this together. Just as she began to take a step forward, the figure lunged, dark and swift, forcing the crowd to gasp as the shadows closed in around us. It felt like an eternity as I watched, desperately reaching out, but the darkness snatched Cassandra away from me once again. "Cassandra!" I shouted, watching her slip through the fingers of hope just as it felt within reach. And with that heartbeat of despair, I realized the figure wasn't just a harbinger of darkness. He was a manifestation of the deepest fears we held, ready to capitalize on the very pain and doubt we fought to transcend. And in that moment of vulnerability, as chaos erupted and the fragile connections we fought to build danced at the precipice of unraveling, I couldn't help but wonder, in our quest to reclaim all we held dear, would we ultimately sink beneath the weight of our own shadows? The shadows shifted, and in a heartbeat, everything felt as though it were slipping away. Cassandra was lost to the darkness yet again, her struggle entangled with so many fears that it left me gasping for breath. I was caught in a storm of despair, the light I had hoped for fading like a distant star, swallowed by the void. But even in that moment of hopelessness, my heart twitched and fought against its confines. I remembered the warmth of our shared laughter, the secrets we had spun together woven with threads of courage and tenderness. I closed my eyes, honing in on that flicker, refusing to let it die amid the tide of shadows pressing around us. "Everyone!" I suddenly shouted, my voice booming like a rallying cry infused with every ounce of fervor I could summon. "Look at what we built together. Every one of us, Cassandra, Angela, me, those hiding within the shadows. We are here because we choose to face the darkness, not let it determine our fate." The energy in the air shifted, a wave of determination rippling through as I locked eyes with Angela. They were opened wide, each carrying the echo of our shared history, a bond that could withstand the tempests. I could feel her spirit reignite with every word I poured into the space around us. Cassandra has not just jumped. She has brought us to the edge of discovery that we can choose to stand united against the shadows that threaten to drown us. Suddenly, voices hummed to life, igniting the embers of courage within the crowd. One by one, they echoed my words, a chorus rising against the encroaching dread. "We choose connection over isolation. We will not be afraid. We can face this together." The dark figure, who had held Cassandra in chains, flinched, his power wavering under the light streaming from the collective strength around us. The tension lifted slightly, threads of hope beginning to weave through the confusion. "No! You are nothing without fear," he spat back at us, voice seething with frustration. But the light spread, illuminating the bridge beneath our feet, banishing the shadows further. I could see Cassandra within the depths, her spirit flickering, the realization that she was part of something larger blossoming in her eyes. I turned my own gaze to her, my heart aching with the urgency of the moment. "Cassandra, you are not just a story of loss. Your journey does not end here." As tears streamed down her face, I saw her square her shoulders, a spark of defiance igniting within her heart. "I am more than the darkness," she shouted, voice stronger, fierce against the storm that wanted to reclaim her. And then, with a single, courageous step, she bridged the gap between us, casting aside the shadows that had tormented her for so long. Her brightness cut through the gloom, illuminating even those around her who had once been consumed by despair. "Ezra," she started, voice trembling yet filled with conviction. I thought jumping was the answer to my pain, and with that admission, I felt the weight of her journey unfold like petals in bloom. But I see now, it was a call for help, a plea to find my way back to mend it for the darkness, but for love, connection, and all that I can be. With unwavering certainty, she began to summon the light from within, her powers igniting with the most brilliant display. As she stepped forward, rising to her full height, I reached for her. "Let me stand with you." And just like that, in an explosion of light, she took my hand, illuminating every facet of our fears, but also our love. The shadows shrank, vaporizing into nothingness, unable to withstand the fierce glow we had ignited together. "Together," she explained, and in that moment, we were not only reclaiming our lives but igniting the path of so many others who battled in silence. The crowd surged around us, the darkness retreating, and the light enveloping us with its warmth. But the most heart-wrenching revelation anchored itself to me in the midst of that miracle of had transformed our pain into something greater than ourselves. We learned to carry our truths, the burdens of our past, into an uncharted future of acceptance. As we stood there, hand in hand, I finally understood what it meant to embrace our journey, to accept our truths, and to transcend the shadows that had tried to pull us apart. Cassandra, I whispered softly as the light pulsed around us, forging connections stronger than chains. You never needed saving. You were meant to find yourself, and I was meant to love every fraction of that journey. With smiles blooming across our faces, hand in hand, we turned to face the crowed-in amalgamation of souls who had walked through the darkness and emerged reborn. Together, we lifted our heads high and breathed in the beauty of a life reclaimed from despair. And there, amid the fragile chaos, was a truth more profound than any darkness, merely a bridge uniting us in every possible sense, lighting the way forward. Because in the end, I said, locking eyes with Cassandra, it was never about the jump. It was about learning to fly above the fear. Together. And in that final moment, as the air shimmered with the exhalation of hope, we took our first steps into the light, woven together, resilient, and beautifully alive in the vastness of our journey.